Chapter 191 Rudra vs Thor, 2, you are listening at novelfull.audio. As Rudra walked out to the immortal arena, he was greeted with mostly silence. There was no loud cheering, there was no boos, only a look of contempt from most light faction gods and a murderous look from the dark faction gods. Rudra spotted Emperor Cervantes, Patricia, King Hades, Old Man Augustus, Sariel, Raphael, Michael, Hazriel, Sam St. Maximus and Benioger as gods who he recognized in the arena. Most of them had an expressionless face when they gazed at him, however, Rudra knew that despite their calm disposition they were internally worried. When Rudra glanced at the two dark faction monarchs, Lucifer raised his glass of wine towards him before taking a sip and grinning evilly. While Satan slid a finger across his throat and bared his tongue at Rudra. "Your horns look ugly, what are you, half bull, half idiot?" Rudra said to Satan, pointing his sword at the Tier 8 god. Rudra's comments caused the dark faction gods to be in an uproar as they banged violently against the barrier separating the viewing area and the fighting area, but it was to no avail. Nobody could break the barrier, it was made from a Tier 10 treasure and controlled by the Universal Queen. The barrier was literally the strongest enchantment in the universe and a big reason why both light and dark faction gods gathered in the immortal arena without there ever being unnecessary bloodshed. Satan looked irked by the comment, he wanted to kill Rudra then and there, but Lucifer wrapped his arm around Satan's shoulder to calm his friend down as the devil laughed maniacally. Soon, Thor walked out to the immortal arena, thunder crackling from his body as he let his aura unfold unchecked, making a grand entrance amongst thunderous cheers from the light faction gods and ear-stinging boos from the dark faction ones. Thor nodded at all the light faction monarchs who had come to witness this fight here today, and they nodded back in acknowledgement as despite many of the monarchs being closer to Rudra and rooting for his victory, on surface they were neutral as a monarch must be. Thor tried to intimidate Rudra by washing his aura over him, but Rudra only activated his own aura skill in response as black smoke began rising all over his body and a powerful and domineering aura pushed Thor's back. In the end Thor's aura was still stronger in comparison, but not enough to completely subdue Rudra's like many gods thought that it would. Pointing his hammer at Rudra, Thor said, "Listen all present here today I'm here because Shikuni the undefeated challenged me to a death match inside the immortal arena. I personally did not wish to bully a junior god, but in this case I was left with no other option. In my heart, I have nothing but respect for the brave warrior that Shikuni is, and I sincerely hope that even after his death today you all shall continue to cherish and respect him in your memories." Listening to Thor's speech, Rudra rolled his eyes. The muscle man was a complete show. Man. His speech even moved the crowd who cheered louder for him, and comments like, "You are the best, show the Tier 6 punk who is the boss," started to float amongst the light faction gods. "You will sincerely be missed, my friend. I will make a memorial for you in my country, beside the one I made for Mavi," Thor said as Rudra threw his swords to the ground and clapped his hands. Clap 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 clap. Rudra's claps silenced the crowd as Rudra pretended to wipe a tear off his eyes as he said, "Thank you for your noble intentions, Lord Thor. My greatest fear before I challenged you to this fight was exactly this. Not having a memorial on your capital planet and being forgotten by the fellow light faction gods in this arena. Since you have addressed both of my issues, I can certainly now die with peace." Silence. There was pin-drop silence in the arena as the other gods nervously gulped down a mouthful of saliva listening to Rudra's sarcasm. Eventually the dark faction gods started to burst out laughing as Thor furrowed his eyebrows and said angrily, "Are you making fun of me?" To which Rudra replied, "Yes, you muscle-headed bozo, I'm making fun of you. Since I've dared to challenge you here today, do you think I want your sympathy? If you are a true man and a warrior, then come face me and take my head. Showmanship and speeches suit politicians, not immortal gods." Thor nodded to Rudra's words as he threw a glance at the crowd for one last time before he said, "Very well, then shall we start the fight?" Rudra picked his swords back up and retracted his aura as he began to stretch and loosen his joints. He closed his eyes for a second and took a few deep breaths before opening them and staring deep into Thor's eyes with focus. "Yes, let's start," Rudra said as the Universal Queen began the countdown for the fight to start. 10, 9, 8. Only a few seconds remained before a monarch fought in the immortal arena for the first time ever, and the audience anticipated a quick death for the opponent. Rudra could see Thor silently preparing his divine spell as the divine essence in the surroundings began visibly shifting, as it seemed like he wanted to start with a big attack right from the get-go. Instead of panicking, Rudra had a wide smile plastered on his face, as this was exactly what he anticipated Thor to do, as this meant that the plan he had made was going to work after all. 3, 2, 1. Start. Rudra smiled as he muttered the words, "Bring it." /////A/N. Guys, I have great news to share, we did it. We made the impossible possible. In the end, we made the top 10 rankings at the very last minute with 2 super gifts by the bosses back coming.in for the clutch. The whole journey was unbelievable, and from the bottom of my heart I'd like to thank everyone who made it possible. It was a journey full of ups and downs. We were 17th, we were 9th, and we dropped down to 11 in the last 3 days, but in the end we entered the top 10 and made the impossible possible. ////. Chapter 192 Rudra vs Thor, 3, you are listening at novelfull.audio. The moment the countdown hit 0, Thor unleashed a tier 6 divine attack, Colossal Thunderstorm. Lightning streaked out of his body and scattered everywhere before converging towards Rudra's direction from all sides. About 500,000 lightning bolts, with each single bolt having the capability of turning a thick tree to ashes, converged towards Rudra from a 360 degrees angle, as it looked like Rudra was doomed from the very beginning. From the start till the end, Rudra only had 0.2 seconds till the attack landed on him, but still in that split second he had prepared a fitting counter. Enhanced full counter. All 500,000 lightning bolts collided against Rudra's 2 swords and changed directions towards Thor as the Lord of Thunder's attack was returned towards him with 3 times the intensity of each strike. Kaboom! 1:450,000. By the time the thunder sound reached the audience's ears a second later, the attack had already landed on Thor's body, giving nothing more than minor scratches to the God of Thunder, who looked amused by the counter. Thunderous cheers. A round of thunderous cheers erupted from the crowd after the first exchange, as Thor was pleasantly surprised by Rudra's readiness. Being the God of Thunder, Thor had near-perfect thunder immunity, which meant that for Rudra to move his HP bar even by a very slight amount from a thunder attack was proof of his superior fighting caliber. Since his opponent had drawn the first blood in the long-range strike, Thor decided that he had to try the physical attack now, as he leaped and brought his hammer over his head, as he tightened his muscles in anticipation of the coming strike. A sly smile covered Rudra's face. A physical confrontation was exactly what Rudra was hoping for early into the fight, as he knew Thor would not be expecting Rudra to surpass him in strength, hence making judgment errors in his fighting style, leading him to lose EXP. Rudra had orchestrated the fight to take this exact turn, as by displaying a superior counter skill, he threw Thor into a self-doubt that made him choose close-range fighting over long-range attacks after the failure of his first strike, not understanding that Rudra's enhanced counter ability was now under cooldown. The start of the fight was the most crucial phase, as it set the tempo of the fight, and by dominating the upcoming physical confrontation Rudra was sure he could control the tempo of the fight, as from then on he would slowly make Thor bleed. Gravity manipulation. Right before Thor was about to hit Rudra, Rudra used gravity manipulation skill on the floating Thor and turned his surroundings to a zero-gravity zone, making him float an extra few meters and missing his mark as he crashed his hammer on the floor behind Rudra. Damn it! Thor turned and swung his free left hand, hoping to catch Rudra's jaw with a punch, but Rudra used gravity manipulation on himself this time, as he fell on his back to avoid the attack without actually falling on the ground, as the zero gravity made him float above the surface. As Thor's swing missed, Rudra immediately jabbed his sword towards Thor's torso at an angle which was impossible if gravity was playing its role, as Thor had to twist like a ballet dancer to avoid the thrust, but it still managed to scrape the side of his armor. 1:20,000. Thor used his right hand and brought Mjolnir down towards Rudra's floating body, as the force of the attack threatened to crush Rudra's ribs should it land, but luckily Rudra used Blink at the last moment, making him teleporting above Thor's head as he attacked Thor's neck from an angle difficult to defend against, causing Thor to take slight real cuts before he was able to move away. Death Style Sword Art. Death Cut, .100, 700, 000 critical hit. Thor retreated a few steps as Rudra landed on his feet with an arrogant smile on his face. There was pin-drop silence in the arena at the moment, as while the battle had only lasted for 12 seconds until this moment, it had been the most breathtaking 12 seconds fight sequence any god had seen in their lives. The only sound that came was of gushing blood dripping from Thor's wounded neck, as the god of thunder burnt his wound with thunder to make the bleeding stop. Nobody expected Rudra to come out with such dominance straight out of the gate, but he did. As Thor was horrified to see a full 10% of his 1 billion points HP bar chopped off. Meanwhile Max had an epiphany after breaking his 69th stick. Max realized that the strength of the stick was never going to be enough to stop the boulder, as no matter what angle he placed it against, it was going to break regardless. What he needed to do instead was to reinforce the stick in such a way that he could concentrate all the force of his body onto the stick and use it to block the boulder. Once Max understood this, it only took him 30 more tries before he stopped the boulder, as he realized that doing it with a stick was even easier than doing it with his hands. The stick could help him concentrate all the force of his body into a small 2 cm surface, which delivered much more force onto the incoming object than his hands ever could. System notification. Congratulations player, Raven, you have naturally mastered the block skill. When Kremeth saw Max get it right in a matter of a few hours, the old turtle was left speechless. He remembered doing this training daily for 1 year before he was able to master this skill, yet the kid in front of him learnt it in a few days. It was at this very moment that Kremeth realized that he had something very special in the form of Max as a student, and that his latent potential was very high. ///////A/N New Year Bonus Chapter 9 out of 10 Enjoy. /////BDNVL.M Chapter 193 Rudra vs Thor, 4, you are listening at novelfull.audio. You're fast, Thor commented as Rudra shrugged his shoulders. Thor had still not understood how Rudra was able to move faster than he did and managed to land his strike, but whatever movement technique he used, whatever short-term boost it gave his speed, it was effective, as today Rudra had made a monarch bleed. Thor respectfully increased his distance from Rudra as Rudra let him disengage without trying to threaten him at all, as he knew that the more Thor tried to analyze, the more he tried to think about the source of Rudra's abilities, the more he was going to confuse his own self. In the information that was publicly available him, Rudra was a Tier 6 god who had ascended to godhood 1.5 years ago and was known to be stronger and faster than an average Tier 6 god, displaying freakish abilities. While this may cause Tier 6 gods to respect Rudra, to any Tier 7 or 8 god reading this article he was nothing much. Because no matter how many freakish stats Rudra had, he could not equal those of gods a tier above him, as they had double the stat points of a Tier 6 god. The source behind Rudra's power was his cheat back in Omega that gave him double stat points to distribute for every level that he gained. This cheat over the course of over 1775 levels and countless multiplications and racial upgrades had led to Rudra now being in existence, which had stats higher than a Tier 8 monarch at Tier 7. However, his biggest cheat was the Tier 10 treasure, Seed of Chaos, and the Tier 9 treasure, Seed of Reincarnation, implanted near his 2 kidneys. The Seed of Chaos was an experience churning machine. The Tier 10 treasure fed on chaos energy and turned it into experience points for the host. While Rudra was not sure as to what exactly chaos energy was, he understood that just like worshipping a deity by mortals gave them divine energy. Strong emotions like anger, hatred, love or lust towards the host gave the Seed of Chaos, chaos energy. Apparently Rudra was an extremely divisive figure. Some hated him, some loved him dearly, while many were angry with him, causing the Seed to help Rudra gain many levels. The Seed was a big reason behind why Rudra was able to ascend to Tier 7 as fast as he did, as the unique one-of-a-kind treasure increased Rudra's leveling speed by a lot, cutting the task that would have taken him decades and achieving it within 1 short year. At the rate Rudra was growing he was sure to reach tier 8 in 3 years if he tried hard, but maximum of 5 even if he did nothing much. Rudra's strength improved by leaps and bounds at a stage where leveling up was nearly impossible and gods had to slaughter entire planets sometimes to gain a meager 1.2 levels. Despite all these advantages, in the end Rudra was still not Thor's match in his current form as an attack which was sure to end the life of any tier 7 god that he fought only managed to bring down Thor's HP by 10%, alerting the opponent in the process. However, Rudra was not discouraged by this at all. He now had the tempo of the fight with him, his opponent was not taking the initiative to attack but was observing and analyzing but nothing that he could think of made any sense which was making him restless. "What happened Thunderlord, am I getting under your skin?" Rudra asked Thor in a mocking tone as the dark faction gods cheered in approval. Surprisingly those guys were rooting for Rudra to win this fight, because in their minds it would be a loss for the light faction as a whole should Thor die as opposed to Rudra. Thor gave no replies to Rudra's question, as Rudra spread his arms and said, "Too scared to attack." Again Thor did not take the bait as he became even more vigilant of Rudra, thinking that the other party was trying to bait him into a strike. Seeing Thor not moving a muscle, Rudra laughed out loud as he said, "So a monarch is now scared of me, very well. Since you are too scared to come on to me, I shall come on to you." Saying so, Rudra charged towards Thor who swung his axe to meet Rudra's blades. It was a straight clash between two divine weapons and Thor expected Rudra to be blown away by his power, but shockingly Rudra did not take a single step back but instead Thor was forced one step back. Clang 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 every time Excalibur met Mjolnir, Thor was pushed back a single step much to the shock of the entire arena as even Thor's eyes widened in disbelief when he realized that despite him putting his full strength into the attacks he was still being pushed backwards. "Who are you? How can you push me back? I am a monarch." Thor roared in anger as he swung Mjolnir as hard as he could trying to push Rudra back, but his anger was to no avail as he was unable to push Rudra back a single step. Shung sparks flew from the connection of the blade against the hammer as a humming vibrating sound could be heard throughout the arena, where Thor and Rudra fought to a stalemate. Staring deep into Thor's blue eyes, Rudra said with a spice of unraveling anger underneath his voice, I'm Shikuni the Undefeated, the sworn brother of the Guildmaster of True Elite's Guild, the man that you murdered in cold blood." Headbutt. Rudra headbutt Thor to create separation between the two, before unleashing a high-speed flurry of sword attacks. /////A/N. Chapter 10 out of 10 of the New Year's mass release. Hope you all enjoyed it. You all worked hard to help me reach the top 10 in December, so this is the reward you deserved. Thank you for all the support ////. Chapter 194 Rudra vs Thor, 5, you are listening at novelfull.audio. The speed at which Thor and Rudra exchanged attacks shocked many tier 6 gods as while they themselves were beings of the highest order, they could barely see a shadow of the attack movements. That Shikuni guy is as fast as Thor. How is this possible? Will a monarch fall here today? Can he really do it? Anticipation started to build amongst the spectators as they saw Thor unable to suppress Rudra with his sheer might as the initial estimations about the fight were now turned upside down with the odds becoming much more stable. Thunderburn, kaboom! A mighty thunderstrike descended from the heavens and blasted Shikuni backwards as the leader of the elites took damage for the first time ever. 1-200-000 Rudra felt a stinging sensation all over his body because of the attack, but he was fine overall. Thor on the other hand had went into supernova mode, he was actively burning the thunder essence in his body to surpass his limits and gain additional strength, speed and stamina. Thor's body became covered in thunder as his blonde hair began to float mysteriously in the air while his eyes turned into thunder sparks. The air around Rudra smelt like the area around a swimming pool, as he realized that it was the thunder from Thor's body converting the oxygen in the air to ozone. Thunderburn was a double-edged sword, while it was going to help Thor surpass Rudra in the short term, should Rudra weather the storm out, then Thor would be the one caught with a debuff unable to compete with his opponent. Hiya! Thor let out a war cry as he charged at Rudra with speeds 20.25% faster than before as Rudra immediately jumped backwards on the back foot, fighting exactly how Serial had trained him to, defending every attack from his opponent. Clang clang sizzle. 120,000 clang clang sizzle. 120,000 Rudra was barely able to stop Thor's attacks from Mjolnir as his hands felt like they were turning to lead from countering the weight of the heavy hammer. Mjolnir of itself was ridiculously heavy, but when it was wielded by a muscle-headed god like Thor, it was a force to be reckoned with, as if Rudra did not wield a divine sword like Excalibur but rather used a legendary blade. He had no doubt in his mind it would have snapped to pieces by now. Regardless, Rudra was still taking peripheral damage from the sparks emitting out of Thor's body, as there was nothing Rudra could do to stop them. He was pushed to his limit as it is from the relentless attacks by Thor and had no time to stop the minor crackles. Thor swung his hammer in a sideways sweep aiming for Rudra's head, which Rudra dodged by ducking under, and instinctively Rudra tried to make use of the opening by trying to attack Thor, as for a split second he stopped running backwards and went in for an attack. 170,030,056 Rudra's sword attack was blocked by Thor's left arm guard, which was sliced at impact and caused Thor to have a deep flesh wound up to his arm bones. Ag! Thor gasped in pain, but soon got a grip over his situation. The high-quality divine armor had done its job. Rudra's sword was stuck in Thor's flesh and as a result he was unable to dodge Thor's hammer swing. Bam! Mjolnir hit Rudra straight on the chin as Rudra was sent flying backwards as his helmet flew off from his head and Rudra crashed on the ground some 100 feet away. 260,987,008 Rudra was dazed, his jaw-bone was undoubtedly broken as his mouth was flooded with blood. Fa! Rudra spat the blood and tried to get back to his feet, but his body would not respond, his knees felt wobbly and his vision was blurry. The crowd roared in approval over the fighting action as Rudra lost a large chunk of his HP bar. The two had traded blows in this instance, but Thor had undoubtedly come out as the bigger winner, as he had not only dealt more damage but had also completely stunned Rudra. Thor knew he needed to make the most of the opening he had created as he courageously pulled off the sword stuck in his bones and threw it to the ground before pulling his hammer over his head and leaping in for a full-powered overhead hammer strike. Without his helmet and without his vision, Rudra was in big trouble against Thor's incoming attack, as the god of thunder was aiming straight for Rudra's head. Meanwhile Kremeth made his 3 disciples sit before him as he asked them all a thought-provoking question. Have you children ever observed an ant colony? He asked as, listening to the question, Max looked at Sebastian and rolled his eyes in frustration. No, Miracle replied without hesitation while Max and Sebastian remained silent. To an ant, this dungeon seems like an endless universe, a vast expansive place that it can never hope to fully explore. It is exciting for ants if they can cross a small stream of water and reach the other side, because to them it feels like crossing entire planets and reaching new realms. Do you agree? Kremeth asked. Yeah, sounds reasonable, Max said while Miracle and Sebastian nodded. At tier 2.3.4 you kids are no different than ants in the universe, you don't have the capability to cross planets. Just like how ants don't have the strength to remove trees from their walking paths and must go around them, you kids don't have the strength to solve 99% of your problems and must avoid them, Kremeth said as while his words made sense, to Max they seemed like another one of his cowardly lectures. Let me ask you this. Do you kids feel guilty if you accidentally crush an ant? Kremeth asked as Sebastian replied, No, we do not. Yes, you do not, because you do not fear ants, you do not fear a million ants and their presence or absence mean nothing to you, Kremeth said with passion as he seemed to be on a roll. Just like you kids don't care about ants, gods don't care about mortal life. Tier 0 ants are invisible for them. Tier 1 ants are so small they might not even see them. Tier 2 ants are barely visible ants. Tier 3 ants are nothing but a bug whose bite they might not even feel. Tier 4 is an ant that will hurt slightly if it bites but not something that can threaten their lives. Tier 5 ants are poisonous ants, but it will still take a whole group of them to catch a god in extraordinary circumstances to deal any real damage, and they still might fail to kill one. Kremeth said as a picture started to form in Max's mind, he could see where this was going. To completely embrace the way of the coward, first you need to embrace that your existence is nothing but an ant to a god. So your morals, your justice, your vengeance mean nothing in front of absolute power. Kremeth said as he stared straight into Max's eyes when he said this. Chapter 195 Rudra vs. Thor 6, you are listening at novelfull.audio. It's over. Everyone in the crowd, though this was it, Rudra was stumbling with his steps, not even looking at Thor, and was defenseless against the incoming attack. Every warrior who was able to step into godhood had to be exceptional in their own right. Every single member of the audience was an unrivaled talent from the home planet that they came from, and they understood well that even with skill it was impossible to evade this incoming strike in the condition that Rudra was in. It was for this reason, they collectively thought, it's over. The only man who was calm and knew that this fight was far from over was Lucifer. The devil had memories of his clone in Omega fighting Rudra. He was the end-level boss of the world, and 7/10 iterations of Omega ended with his faction coming out on top, while the other three saw Benyager winning. The outcome where Hades won Omega was 1/10000000000, with Rudra's iteration being the only one where Lucifer was ever slain. Hence, being the only foe in the arena that had experience fighting Rudra, Lucifer knew better than anyone just how unbelievably superior Rudra's battle instincts were. He was a god above mere gods, and a schemer that was impossible to put down. He was Shikuni the Undefeated for a reason. Time dilation. The second that Rudra realized that he was wobbly and unable to respond in time, he immediately activated his skill time dilation, whereby the flow of time around him reduced by 10 times. The 1.2 seconds that Thor took to pull out Rudra's sword, jump and try to hit Rudra on his head were a full 12 seconds for Rudra. For the first 5 he was seriously dazed. Second 6 his vision returned and he noticed a flying Thor coming his way. Second 7 a plan formulated in his mind as to what to do next. Second 8 he started to prepare his counter-attack, Holy Lance. Second 9 he gathered the energy and pretended to still be dazed. Second 10 he was ready to step out of the way as he tightened his muscles. Second 11 he finally moved with Thor's hammer a hair's breadth away from him. Second 12 Thor's attack passed through air as his own momentum made him stumble forward as he was blasted with Rudra's Holy Lance from the back, in an attack that he never saw coming. 319,000, 560 Thor lost 32% of his total HP from a single attack, as the god of thunder felt a gaping hole through his vital organs, causing a shitton of internal bleeding. Shung Thor blocked Rudra's subsequent attack, barely at that, as he could not even see Rudra's movements anymore. 0.12.000000000.30.000.13.000.000.000. A flurry of attacks injured the god of thunder, who could no longer match Rudra's speed at all. It was as if his opponent was suddenly 10 times faster than before, as let alone blocking his attacks, Thor had trouble even tracing them. At this instance, Thor thanked his good fortune that Rudra was attacking with only one sword in his hands, as if he had 2 Thor would be taking double the damage. I can't take this for much longer, Thor thought as he gritted his teeth and decided to use his hidden card that he had hardly ever revealed in history. The only reason why the universe was unaware of Thor being in possession of this secret was because nobody who had ever seen Thor use it was alive after he did. Thor was the god of thunder, but he was not the first one. Long before he ever became the god of thunder, Indra was the god of thunder and the ruler of all ancient gods. And when he died, he left behind the extremely powerful Tier 9 weapon Indra. Astra, weapon of the thunder god. Meanwhile, Max, do you think ants have morals? Do you think if you cut a leg of one ant and incapacitate it, the others will help it survive? Kremeth asked rhetorically, as he did not really want to reply. They won't, because they know that having morals is a weakness. Those who cannot contribute to the survival of the colony are useless, those who cannot look after themselves are useless. Kremeth exclaimed as he stared straight into Max and said, especially you, boy, you are talented and lucky, you have noble ambitions and lofty goals, I can sense that in you, but contrary to what you might believe, having such goals at your strength is what hinders you from growing and does not aid you. Your only goal should be to improve and survive, that's it. Everything else can wait till you are the boot and they are the ant, you understand. Max shook his head and said, humans are not ants, emotions are not weakness, helping others is not a weakness. The reason why ants fall to boots is because they lack empathy. I understand the world is a ruthless place, but having goals and ambitions is what helps me strive forward in this ruthless world. I may be an ant, but I refuse to live like one. If I was an ant in a colony, I would change the way the colony works. Sebastian and Mira looked at Max like they had seen a ghost. The duo never expected Max to argue with Kremet the way he did, and now that he had they worried about the consequences of his actions. Very well, since you stubborn teens don't understand my sound advice, the three of you shall experience it for yourselves. 7 days you shall spend as ants in an ant colony, let's see if you have such a mindset after that. Kremet said as he began carving a rune formation around his 3 students. Wait, why are we also accompanying Max? Sebastian asked as he was smacked on the head by Kremet and asked to remain quiet. Kremet used ancient runic knowledge to create mind control runes whereby he transferred the minds of his 3 students to that of 3 ants, knowing full well that it was going to be an eye-opening experience for them. /////A/N. This bonus chapter is sponsored by patron Savanthi. Please thank her in the comments for this one /////. Chapter 196 Rudra vs Thor, 7, you are listening at novelfull.audio. Indra. Astra. Thunder wave, Thor let out a devastating thunder wave out from his body that was impossible to defend against as the attack spanned 360 degrees and progressed at the speed of light. Fuck, Rudra knew he could not outrun this one as although he was in his 10x time diluted state he could only ball his body up and try to cover his vital organs against this attack by Thor. 10, 200,000 Rudra was blasted backwards, as a glistening light blue thunderbolt appeared in Thor's left hand. The thunderbolt in Thor's hand radiated immense power that made even the indestructible ground of the immortal arena vibrate with fear. Indra, Astra. Indra, Astra. Oh my god, a weapon of the ancient god of thunder. A supreme tier 9 treasure. The crowd absolutely lost their minds when they saw the weapon in Thor's hand. Many knew of its nature, it was the weapon forged from the soul of the dead thunder god and contained a large chunk of his powers. It was missing for eons and was a reason behind countless treasure hunts throughout the universe, but they were all wild goose chases. Turned out, the weapon was now in possession of Thor Odinson, as the thunderbolt in his hand became a major cause of envy for other gods present in the arena. Thor hated this attention. He had successfully hidden the fact that he was the inheritor of the Indra, Astra from the masses for centuries. However, because of Rudra's unnatural battle prowess he was forced to reveal its existence today. BVEC, the momentum of the battle might change now, Hades commented. Shikuni has fought valiantly, he even had the upper hand, but a tier 9 weapon changes the whole game. Thor can potentially spam countless powerful tier 5 attacks that do not require divine essence endlessly, while he can also amplify the strength of his divine attacks by many folds. The balance of the battle has undoubtedly tipped in his favor, Raphael analyzed. I would not count Shikuni out yet, albeit it feels like things have undoubtedly gotten tougher for him. The path from here on to victory is going to be extremely challenging, Emperor Cervantes said as he gripped the sword hanging on his waist tighter. Thor being pushed to such limits by a new god is shocking, he even had to reveal his hidden cards, Benyeger said as she smiled holistically seeing the battle progress. Rudra had 2 minutes left in his time dilation spell and with Thor continuously spamming powerful thunderbolts towards him, he knew he had to do something and fast if he wanted to tip the scales of this battle. While Rudra was not completely aware of the prowess of the weapon in Thor's hand, his personal AI Gaia said that it was a tier 9 treasure and an item that could potentially cause monarchs to fight against each other. This piece of news was enough for Rudra to determine that he needed to do something about this new weapon and defeat Thor before the momentum shifted. because as things stood at the moment, if he could not defeat Thor with 10x time dilation active, he was not sure he could create any better chances for delivering his strongest attacks. Rudra knew in his gut that it was now or never for him, and hence he decided to take a risky gamble. This was a death match, one that he requested for the sole reason of avenging his brother Karna's death. There could be no other outcome to this fight than Thor paying for his sins. Failure was certainly not an option. Rudra could not fail. He could not let the millions of elites back home who were relying on him to avenge the death of their guildmaster be disappointed, hence he decided to risk it all to either win big or die trying, as he gritted his teeth and activated his biggest cheat code. Future sight. Meanwhile Max woke up groggily and with a headache, and when he woke up he was shocked to see that everything around him was extremely giant. Whoa, Max thought as he noticed the enormity of the tree leaf around him, as although he knew from the texture and color of the structure that it was a leaf, but up close he could see all the small deformities inside the lead that were invisible to his prior eyes that looked amazing. "You, soldier, get your ass back to work." A voice entered Max's ears as he turned to look at a massive ant twice its size shouting at him. "Me?" Max asked in confusion, not knowing if the shouting was meant for him. "The colony needs food, soldiers need to work. Obey or suffer the consequences," the giant ant said as Max felt a deep fear crawling into his being. Every survival instinct that the little ant's body had screamed at Max to get back to work. As Max's vampire brain was unable to process the reason behind the fear, it was like he could not breathe, the pressure was suffocating him, and although he clearly remembered boasting before Kremeth that he would change the ant culture given the chance, at the moment he obeyed the command of his superior and began tearing a small part of the leaf with his pincers before dragging it back towards where the rest of the ants were moving. Even after the bigger ant stopped glaring at Max, the fear factor did not subside, as it took Max a full 40 minutes to calm his racing heart. "You are not a slave ant, Max, you need to find allies, stage a coup and try to revolutionize the ant culture. You are a free ant. You are Max the primordial vampire." Max thought as he decided to raise his voice when he returned back to the cave. What Max had no idea about was that the shock of a lifetime awaited him when he actually reached the cave and saw the reality of the ant world. Chapter 197 Conclusive Action. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Rudra knew in his gut that it was now or never for him, and hence he decided to risk it all to either win big or die trying, as he gritted his teeth and activated his biggest cheat code. Future sight. Reality break. Rudra moved in on Thor, ignoring the tier 5 blasts coming his way. He decided to take them all on head-on, his only goal being to close in on Thor and blast him with the elite blast from close range. 1, 200,000.1, 200,000. Rudra took 2 shots straight to his chest, but continued to move forward undeterred, his freakish speed allowing him to sneak up close to Thor in a breath's time. Elite Blast. Rudra activated one of his strongest attacks, as a large chunk of his divine energy converted into a beam of pure energy as he blasted Thor with it at point-blank range. Thor reacted quickly to this attack as he retaliated by blocking Rudra's elite blast using his Indra Astra, as a spectacular energy explosion covered the entire arena, causing the seats of all spectators to vibrate violently as both Thor and Rudra took damage from the resulting fallout. Rudra's HP bar dropped to an orange, while Thor's entered a critical red as the two of them fought with 35% and 22% HP respectively. Things were looking dire for both fighters, as one small mistake now would lead to death as the audience watched the fight unfold with bated breaths. A bleeding Rudra charged against Thor once more but was caught by yet another thunder wave, generated by the Indra Astra, as his advance was stopped in its tracks. "It was a noble fight, but it's now time to end this," Thor said as the thunder god gripped his divine weapon and began channeling his divine energy. Rudra on the other hand gripped the only sword he had left, his trusty Grim Reaper, and unleashed a space-tearing sword strike towards Thor. Thor took the slash head-on, not bothering to even dodge as he took a good 15% damage from the attack that sliced open his guts. With a pitiful 7% HP left, however, the god unleashed his most powerful attack. Ultimate move. Wrath of the Thunder God, Thor unleashed the most powerful attack of the Indra, Astra, infusing 70% of his divine essence into the weapon to create the only Tier 9 attack he was capable of. Rudra's complete surroundings turned white as an unbelievable amount of energy poured all around him, turning the Tier 7 god's body to dust. The attack was so powerful, Rudra did not even feel like he was fighting a lightning attack but rather felt like he was in the middle of a sun's core and being melted by incredible amounts of heat and pressure. The indestructible rocks making the immortal arena cracked and cratered by this attack, as even the strongest gods with the best eyes had to look away from the strike, fearing that they would be blinded if they did not do it. Either way, the sensation only lasted for a split second for him before he died. Reality resumed. Rudra was a little rattled by the true power that Thor was capable of. This fight was way closer to its completion than he had imagined and he needed to tread carefully if he wanted to win. Charging at Thor just like he saw in his vision, Rudra took 2 lightning bolts straight to his chest before using the Elite Blast attack just like his vision. Thor responded exactly like Rudra wanted him to, by using the Indra, Astra to negate the attack as the resulting explosion created 0.5-second powerful explosion where both Thor and Rudra were blasted backwards taking immense amounts of damage. Unlike the last time however, this time around Rudra used a slight trickery when he was repelled backwards as he summoned his trusted pet, Furball, and threw their soul. Link asked her to transform into himself while he activated his skill, Doppelganger, to create 7 clones of himself. When Thor got back up to his feet with only 22% of his HP bar intact, he was confused to see 8 identical Rudras standing before himself. Furball, you know what to do, Rudra said in his mind to Furball through Soul Link, as Tier 6 divine 9-tailed beast that looked exactly like Rudra opened its human-sized mouth and used her strongest attack, Divine Fireblast. Unlike his previous vision, this time Thor was forced to block the incoming attack with Mjolnir as he was pushed significantly backwards in the process. It doesn't matter if you are 1 or 8, in front of absolute power you are nothing. It was a noble fight, but it's time to end this charade, Thor said as he began to unleash his strongest attack, but had to stop midway as his eyes widened in disbelief as he looked at the skies above. Asteroid rain, impossible. Thor said in disbelief as he looked at the 15 massive asteroids that were coming towards him with terminal velocity. While Furball was attacking Thor, Rudra was preparing his only, cosmic, great attack, Asteroid Rain, as he wanted to force Thor to use his ultimate move for defense rather than offense. Thor was under a peril now. Had his HP bar been higher he could have ignored the threat of the asteroid rain and chosen to attack Rudra to end the fight, but with his HP bar being at such low levels he was forced to make an unfavorable choice. The temperature in the arena increased significantly and while the audience was shielded from any attack damage that might come, they were not spared from the scorching heat as some minor gods even began to take nominal burn damage. Gritting his teeth, Thor decided to obliterate the incoming threat using his strongest move as he was forced to neutralize the asteroid rain using Wrath of the Thunder God. A blinding energy covered the stadium, as nobody was able to see Thor's attack but everyone felt their bodies tingle and the hair on their skin burn from the radiation of the attack. It took a whole 45 seconds before light returned to vision supporting levels as the audience were greeted to a very shocking scene of an armless Thor bleeding profusely with only 2% of his total HP left under Rudra's feet. The arm which was initially holding the Indra, Astra cut clean from Thor's body and kicked far away from himself while Mjolnir laid a few meters beside Thor, on whose neck the Grim Reaper rested. The entire arena was enveloped in absolute silence, seeing this scene as goosebumps arose on the skin of every monarch watching this fight who could not believe what they were seeing. Satan was trembling in his boots, while Lucifer was grinning madly. The devil was the only one who witnessed Rudra locking on Thor's location before he used the attack as if knowing full well that the god of thunder would use this attack and it would result in a blinding light covering the arena. Rudra patiently waited for his chance and waited till he felt the humming radiation coming from Thor's side subside, meaning that the attack was finally over. The second he felt that, he went in for the attack on a Thor who was also unable to see at that very instance. Rudra with his perfect angelic memory managed to slice Thor's arm holding the Indra Astra clean off his body as he reflexively dodged Thor's counter swing using Mjolnir before kicking the weapon off Thor's hands and sweeping him off his feet to pin him on the ground under his sword. While the others only witnessed this end result when their visions returned, the devil could simulate in his mind precisely what went down as he licked his lips and said, "Well played. /////A/N. Bonus chapter for hitting the GT target, good job everyone, ////. Chapter 198 Rudra's Choice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You have defeated me. I will be honest, coming into this battle, this outcome never crossed my mind, but now that I am standing at the crossroads of death, I cannot accept my fate. Thor said sadly as he looked into Rudra's murderous eyes, peeping hopefully to see a shred of sympathy. My Thunder Nation needs me, without my presence it won't be possible to hold such a large territory, my citizens would be taken over by various factions and their peaceful lives would be uprooted. I cannot allow that to happen, Shikuni. As an administrator and a previous king yourself, I'm sure you understand. Thor said as his words stirred the emotions of the crowd. I know this is a death match, but I still have the option to unconditionally surrender and you to accept my surrender. In return for accepting my surrender and sparing my life, you will be given 3 favors that I cannot refuse, with the only request you not being able to make is my death. Spare my life, and this Thor Odinson will remember your favor forever, Thor said as the light faction crowd cheered. Spare him. You can ask for anything in return, it's only fair, spare him. The crowd had already witnessed an exhilarating match up between Rudra and Thor, with the winner of the bout shockingly turning out to be Rudra. Rudra's stock had undoubtedly skyrocketed after this fight. There was no question in anybody's mind that whether he remained with the One Night faction or started one of his own, he would be given the respect equal to that of a monarch after today, as the universe would tremble at his name. Kill him already, he killed your friend, time to end him, blood. The Dark faction gods on the other end wanted Rudra to end this for once and for all. They wanted to see the Light faction lose one monarch today, and they were repulsed by the idea of a pardon. System notification. Urgent quest issued. Quest notification. The Universal Queen has requested you to spare the life of Thor Odinson for the security and stability of the universe. Thor is a pillar of the Light faction and his death will affect the universe on a grand scale. Although I sympathize with your pain of losing your human friend Karna, destabilizing the universe is not the correct way of avenging his death. Spare his life and let his public defeat be enough vengeance for Karna's death. Universal Queen rewards. A3 undeniable wishes from Thor. A plus 50 levels, by Universal Queen, A1 tier 9 treasure of choice from the Forbidden Warehouse. Time limit. 3 minutes failure penalty. Rudra read the quest notification and the words of the Universal Queen with his eyebrows arched. Up till this point in life Rudra had always believed that the Universal Queen was a neutral entity who never interfered with politics of the real world. However, it seemed like she too had a tolerance limit beyond which she could not remain silent. The rewards were truly unbelievably lucrative, and if Rudra did not have a personal beef with Thor, he would have gladly accepted these terms. What bothered Rudra was on the failure penalty box. This was a fair fight that Rudra had won. He was not meant to have any failure to comply penalties. Thor's life and death were in his hands and nobody could change that fact. He had defeated Thor with skill and honor following all the rules of the duel, hence the concept of a failure penalty was utterly and truly bogus. Rudra closed his eyes and tried to convince his heart that the benefits offered were too good to deny. It was not every day that one was able to snoop around in a location called the Forbidden Warehouse and choose from tier 9 treasures. The plus 50 levels were nearly a decade worth of leveling for most average tier 6 gods, and something that appealed to Rudra strongly. However, no matter how Rudra tried to convince his heart, it just would not be convinced. Karna was his brother, and no amount of treasure was ever going to bring him back. Rudra opened his eyes and looked at Thor as he said, I want to spare you, I truly do. But me sparing you will be on one condition and one condition only. That you revive my fallen brother Karna. I don't care how you do it, or what you have to sacrifice to do it, but that is my only demand from you. I'm not interested in riches, I have plenty. I'm not interested in power, I wield enough for myself to carve my own place in this universe. The only thing I want is my brother back. So tell me Thor, can you bring him back from the dead? Thor's eyes widened with hope when Rudra said, I want to spare you, but when he heard the condition behind it his hope died quickly. I'm sorry for Karna's death, but what you are asking is impossible. You know it's impossible. Like, he died in a battle zone, there is nothing I can do to bring him back. There is no treasure that can revive souls once that have dissipated. What you are asking from me is simply not possible. Yo. Splat. 450,000,788. The moment Thor made it clear that he had no means of reviving Karna, Rudra plunged his sword straight into his throat, taking away the 2% HP he had left and slaying the monarch. A loud gasp originated from the light faction crowd for this death, while the dark faction gods cheered like crazy. For Rudra to send Thor to meet his maker despite all the benefits offered was shocking to many gods who were inherently greedy by nature. Even the other monarchs turned away from the sight of the dead corpse of Thor as they felt uncomfortable looking at it. And the doofus killed him, Patricia said with a frown on her face, although internally she was extremely happy that Rudra did. The rowdiness of youth, Augustus said as he felt his chest swell with pride at the fact that Rudra shared the One Night family name. Chapter 199 Betrayal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. System notification. You have killed the Tier 8, light faction player, Thor, inside a battle zone plus 35 levels. Plus weapon Indra, Astra plus 120 billion gold coins. Plus 12 billion platinum coins, light faction notification. The monarch of Thunder Nation, Thor Odinson has been slain in duel by Shikuni the undefeated. All Thunder Nation players will receive a 0.25% debuff for next 3 months, quest notification. You have failed the quest and will now hashtag of the hashtag $$ hashtag Rudra saw the notifications and was slightly bothered by the third one, but chose to ignore it for the moment. Taking out the newly bestowed upon Indra, Astra from his inventory, Rudra dripped a drop of his blood on the weapon to bind it to his soul. Kaboom! A celestial lightning storm brewed around Rudra as he binded himself to the Indra, Astra before the eyes of thousands of jealous crowd members. Rudra had not only defeated Thor, but taken possession of his most prized weapon in what could only be described as the most unexpected fight of all time. While the entire light faction reeled from the shock of the faction-wide system announcement, the devil Lucifer got a different one. Lucifer's POV, quest notification. The Universal Queen has issued you the task of punishing Shikuni of the elites. Kill the light faction god for unknown rewards. Completion rewards. Unknown time limit. 7 minutes failure penalty. Lucifer looked at the quest notification and smiled a devilish smile as he internally ordered his system AI, Mazikeen, to connect him with the Universal Queen. Lucifer. Darling, if you want me to take down Shikuni, you will need to sneakily help me. I will not take your quest if it's a fair fight. The man is too freaking strong for me to take on without having to receive a scratch or two, and I am in no mood for such useless things. Universal Queen. Noted, appropriate help to you shall be provided. With this the connection Lucifer had with the Queen was terminated, as the devil lazily stretched himself and brought out his weapons. What are you doing? Satan asked Lucifer, who simply winked back in response before walking through the impenetrable barrier like it was never there, into the immortal arena. Rudra's POV. After taking possession of the Indra, Astra, Rudra tried to walk back out of the immortal arena towards his dressing room. However, to his surprise the barrier to the dressing room had not been lifted and he was unable to exit the arena. Why am I not able to leave? Rudra asked as the surrounding light faction gods were either too terrified of him to answer his doubt or too disgusted by the fact that he killed Thor to pay him any respect. It was at this instance that Rudra felt a nefarious aura creep up on his back as he felt an electric current run throughout his body. Rudra turned and was horrified to see the devil inside the immortal arena with his black demonic wings spread wide and his red demonic eyes mocking Rudra. "Missed me?" Lucifer asked, referring to the last fight they had inside Omega where Rudra managed to slay the devil and carve an immortal legacy for himself. Although Rudra had never publicly admitted it, the devil had given him nightmares since Omega ended. Rudra knew there would come a day where he would face the devil for real and that the fight would not be easy that day. "How did you get in?" Rudra asked the question that every god was wondering as after Lucifer passed through the barrier, Satan tried to do the same as he violently hit the barrier with his attacks in hopes of passing through, but it was to no avail. The light faction monarchs sensing the danger were quick to respond as well, as many urged their eyes to quickly connect to the queen while others tried to desperately break the barrier themselves so that they may come down to Rudra's aid. "The barrier is impossible to break, how did Lucifer get through?" Hades said as he sliced his scythe against the barrier with full force, unable to scratch it in the slightest. Rudra looked at his inventory and found that his potions were still locked, meaning he had no means to recover his lost health and that he had to face Lucifer now with most of his key moves on cooldown and with only 1/3 of his HP pool available. "Ha ha ha, so this is your punishment for me, I never knew the Universal Queen was a biased coward," Rudra said in a clear voice as those who heard him amongst all the chaos that was undergoing, understood his meaning clearly. Lucifer laughed like a maniac as he said, "Are you scared of death?" When Lucifer said these words the entire light faction began their attempts in trying to break the barrier as regardless of their personal feelings for Rudra, they could not let the devil kill one of their best. "Don't you dare touch him, fight me if you are a real man, Lucifer, I will kill you. Dark faction scum." Despite all the threats, Lucifer kept walking towards Rudra undeterred as Rudra too took a deep breath and retrieved the Indra, Astra, ready to risk it all with Thor's ultimate move. Lucifer's smile disappeared when he saw Rudra charging up the Indra, Astra as Furball in her divine nine-tails form stepped between her owner and the devil, growling at him continuously and daring him to take a single step forward. Right as Rudra was ready to unleash the weapon's strongest attack, however, he was betrayed by his own AI, Gaia notification. Shorting cerebral connection, immobilizing player, Rudra's eyes widened in disbelief when he saw the system notification, as he only had time to think Gaia, before he dropped down limp on the ground. When any god reached tier 6 they were assigned an AI by the Universal Queen. The AI was handy at memory management, fetching information, sending queries to the Queen and many other tasks. It was supposed to be a friendly tool, but nobody knew that it had the capability of immobilizing gods. When Rudra's limp body hit the ground, Patricia screamed at the top of her lungs. She had a terrible feeling develop inside her gut at the moment, but no matter how much she screamed, she was helpless to help her brother at this moment. Everything seemed to come to a standstill as the devil swatted Furball's attack away before imprisoning her in a black void as he continued to walk over to Rudra's limp body. Lucifer stomped on Rudra's back as he laughed Heart Lily before pulling Rudra's head up to expose his neck. "Behold, Shakuni the undefeated," he said in a mocking voice as he made eye contact with every light faction monarch and gave them his dirty smile. "Many of you know this man, he is a legendary warrior who killed my tier 6 avatar in Omega while only being immortal. Truly admirable. But for the crime of killing my avatar in Omega, I Lucifer give you the death penalty," Lucifer said coldly as he slit Rudra's throat. //////A/N. Bonus chapter for hitting the PS target, good job everyone, /////. Chapter 200 Aftermath. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Present day, Max had streams of tears flowing down his cheeks when he heard Patricia narrate the tale of how his brother died. He knew that the Universal Queen was biased based on Kremeth and Drax's experiences, but he never thought she was this corrupt. Even when he only had 1/3 of his HP left, Lucifer did not have the balls to attack his brother in an open fight, but the Queen used her implanted AI to destroy Rudra's cerebral connection and make him defenseless against the devil. It was truly despicable. Your brother would not have died even when Lucifer slit his throat had the Queen not interfered. Hades and Benyager were both sitting in the audience with me, and I remember the god of death and the goddess of life working extremely hard together to preserve Rudra's soul and return him back to life, but the queen did not let their spells take effect as she interfered with the spell's completion. The monarchs always knew that the queen bent the laws, that her fair rule was but a facade, but there had never been such a blatant abuse of power by her before this fight. Nobody knows what your brother did to piss the queen off so much that she had to come out of her neutrality and force her will around like this, but it does have far-reaching consequences. The monarchs and the queen are locked in a two-way alliance, and if more than 70% of the monarchs want her gone, they can shut down the universal queen. With her recent antics, she has lost a lot of support. Patricia said as Max was barely listening to her words. Everything that Rudra ever said revolved clearly in Max's mind. With me here, nobody will hurt you, Max. Without me, Earth shall fall. You should be less predictable when you attack. Just because an attack works once doesn't mean it will work twice. Don't take your enemies for fools, Max. Your girlfriend Sophie is not good for you, Max. She is using you and you are letting her use you. I'm proud of you. You have grown into a fine man. Max's mind was in shambles. He was not ready to accept his brother's death as a murderous aura erupted from Max's body. Patricia, who was standing beside Max, felt his surging aura and it gave her goosebumps. Patricia's eyes widened in disbelief as she saw Max with genuine shock. I'm a tier 6 god, he is a tier 3 kid. How is his aura able to affect me 3 tiers apart? The only time this has happened before is when I met his brother for the first time. Patricia thought as she realized that the two brothers were more alike than she ever realized. Shaking her head, she continued, however, this is not the end of the story, as in the end something extraordinary occurred that not even Lucifer was expecting, Patricia said as Max looked at her with hopeful eyes. What happened in the end? Max asked, his voice sounding like he had a bad flu for weeks. In the end your brother's body began to glow with power, and instead of dissipating like all other bodies do a while after they are killed, his body began to turn into golden divine particles in the most beautiful transition you could ever see. The queen tried to stop this process as she placed a barrier above the arena, but his golden light was too powerful for even the barrier to contain as it broke free and sped up towards the stars. I don't know with 100% certainty if your brother is dead or alive. On one hand, if he was alive, I'm sure that not even the queen could have stopped him from being present for the birth of his child with Ruby. He would somehow contact me and his family no matter where he would be. On the other hand, his divine sword Excalibur that he dropped in his battle with Thor is still soul-bound to Rudra and will not pick a new master, while the Indra, Astra and his other sword and equipment are nowhere to be found. Even Furball did not dissipate when Rudra died like a soul-pet should without its master, rather she disappeared without a trace just like Rudra's body. We have used the treasures of the highest grade, including Ruby's magic orb, to try to locate Rudra, but it comes back as blank, signifying he is dead. None of the gods have ever witnessed something post a god's death like they did with Rudra, and nobody is quite sure of what to make of it. If by some insane method your brother is still alive, he probably has means that defy the laws of the universe itself, because karmic resurrection of a god of Rudra's stature cannot be done without destroying the entire fabric of reality, Patricia said as Max's eyes sparkled with hope listening to these comments. Then is there a small chance he may be alive? Max asked innocently, to which Patricia shrugged her shoulders. While she tried to keep a strong front in front of Max, internally even she cried at nights because she felt the pain of losing her brother unbearable. However, she was the ruler of the one-night kingdom and hence externally she could not display her mourning. Max exhaled sharply as he remembered Kremitha's teachings and said, Turtle Hermit Rule Number 6. An angry coward is a dead coward. Max repeated this mantra again and again until he had a firm grip over his emotions before dusting himself off as he asked in a now clear voice, what happened to the Thunder Nation? 70% of it was claimed by us. It's now governed by Duke Neatwit, who was appointed as the nominal leader under my command. When either you, Jake or Kartikeya grow up, I may pass the land to one of you as your birthright, but for now it will be one-night property. The rest 30% was claimed by the Hazel Groove Empire and King Cervantes for compensation for damages caused by the dark faction spies that had invaded his territory and caused terrorist attacks from the Thunder Nation. Ednel.co. In my opinion 30% was way too much concession on our part, but the Patriarch Augustus conceded that much land, so I had no choice but to respect his decision. Naturally, a few rebels from the Thunder Nation tried to stage a rebellion to take the power back, but the leader of the Red Hand mercenary group and the now infamous Ball Buster gave the rebels punishments far worse than death. He is solely responsible for so much fear and terror in the territory that mothers use his name to make the children obediently go to bed while making adult men pee their pants. Thinking that the Ball Buster was this bad with only men, a few courageous women tried to take him on, thinking since they had no balls, they would be safe from his attacks, but the man turned their C cups to flat A's using his ball-busting technique, as the psychological trauma of the event caused one of the women to lock herself in her room and not come out for 4 months straight. He has single-handedly brought order and stability to the region. Patricia said, "Sir Johnny." Max asked, bewildered, as there was only one man legendary enough to pull this feat off. "He is now God Johnny English, the fearsome god of busting balls," Patricia replied as Max looked at the ball-busting skill sitting in his stat panel and wondered if it was truly this terrifying. "So what is your plan from here on now?" Patricia asked as Max calmly responded, "I have to free Asiva and Severus first while taking down the Kingsman clan. But I know that I cannot do it alone and will probably need help, so I'll try to ask Sir Johnny. If he agrees, would then formulate a plan and get my friend free from jail. If not, I'll figure out something else." Patricia was very impressed by Max's reply. The boy was clearly startled by the events of Rudra's death, but even so he had maintained admirable poise and dignity while retaining his sense of judgment. His temperament has improved a lot. Whoever taught him has taught him really well, as with such a stable mindset he is sure to go far, Patricia thought as she smiled and said, "If you need any help, feel free to contact me. Rudra's family is my family too." With this statement Patricia took off, as a second later she vanished from the spot she was standing on, leaving Max alone in his new mansion's gardens. /////A/N. This was chapter 200 of the book. I hope you all are enjoying it so far. Today I'm extremely proud to announce that we have reached the 200 chapter mark in only 70 days, averaging 2.85 chapters a day. The support you have shown to earn the bonuses has been extraordinary. Let's keep this pace up. /////.